Welcome to Friday Nights with Emma. Hope everybody's okay. Had a good VE day today. It's been lovely weather. It's great. Just gonna let everybody. What? Michael's doing it again for me tonight. He's shaking his head.
There's nobody on.
So, okay, yeah.
Oh, here we go.
Give it a minute or so for everybody to join. Just give us a thumbs up or a little heart to let us know you're here.
Terry's here.
Oh, hi Terry. Hi.
And Joan Johnson.
Hi
And
Joan.
Debbie's here.
Hi Debbie.
Kathleen is here.
Hi Kathleen.
Karen is here.
Hi Karen.
Karen with a C.
Hi Karen with a C. So tonight is log cabin. I said last week, so did I show you what to do a log cabin? This one's a little bit different. The main body is exactly the same log cabin, but when it gets a little bit bigger, we're going to add bits in between and get my bits.
Carol and Hannah-Laure and Libby.
Oh, hi Carol.
And Sharon.
Hi Logan.
And
hi,
Joan. And
Hi,
Iona.
Hi Iona. Oh, this way.
And Hillary.
Hi Hillary.
Annette.
Oh, I'll move my bits.
Annette is here.
Hi Annette. So hopefully you saw earlier when I posted a picture of this. I just laid it out. I haven't sewn it together yet because
Dawn and Denise.
Oh, hi Dawn.
And Lorraine.
This way.
Your mum.
Oh, hello Mum.
And Jackie.
Hi Jackie.
Dawn. Lori.
Hi Laurie.
Barbara.
Hi Barbara.
Your mum says you look nice.
Oh, thanks Mum.
Judy.
Hi Judy. Yeah, so I'm just recreating what I did earlier. So with this one, we're going to have stars in between each block.
Angie.
That's how it goes. Can you see that? There. Now it's not necessarily the final layout that I want, but I just wanted to show you how the stars come together in the middle.
Diamond is watching.
Oh, hi Shirley.
Diamond. Oh.
Right, so I'm going to put that aside for now because as you can see, the star gets made with what's essentially sashing and posts. So that comes later on. So we're going to start with the main log cabin.
Carmela, Jan, Anne, and Barbara.
Oh, hi Carmela, hi Jan, hi Barbara.
And Anne.
Right, for log cabin, so I've gone with the blue theme, but the main thing that you want to choose with your fabrics is darks and lights. And for this quilt, you're going to have 4 different dark fabrics and 4 different light fabrics. Obviously there's an extra one that goes around that's going to make the sashing.
Joanna's watching. Her and her mum are watching from separate homes. She has to social distance.
Hi Joe and your mum. Staying safe. So for log cabin, traditionally the centre square is red, or it can be yellow. So log cabin is obviously what it means, log cabin, and the red square depicts the hearth of the log cabin, but you can do whatever colour you want. I have to admit I tend to keep it red or red-ish, pink or something like that. So let me start with going over the strips. So these are all just 2-inch strips. So these are my colours, and they don't have to be, so I've done it all uniform, but you can just as easily do this scrappy as well, like I did the pineapple, with separating out all your lights and your dark fabrics and just mixing them up. So that's my centre blue. This is my second blue. That's all my third blue for the light. Oh yes, I've cut these out separately. So that's going to be my 4th blue that's going to make the sashing. Those are my light ones. And then my darks are...
Joanne's mum's name is Maureen.
Oh, hi Joanne's mum, Maureen. Those are my 3, and then my final one, I've got some here. Those are my 4 blues. But again, you can do whatever you want.
Sorry.
As long as it's a light and a dark. Right. Now the way that I do log cabin is that's all the cutting that I do at this point. I'm going to do all the sewing. That's the last bit that goes there. Move these out of the way.
Diana Rowlands is watching.
Oh, hi Diana. Actually, I'm going to grab one of those. So I'm going to start with my middle strip, which is this one. I'm just going to start sewing a couple of blocks to show you. Now, if I was doing, well, when I did this earlier with my other blocks, I just work on all the blocks at once. So, and there's no pinning, no cutting. All I'm doing is I'm laying my square on top of my strip, needle up, in the right position.
Christina is watching.
Oh, hi Christina. Oh, find my foot. Hold my threads. So I'm just going to sew straight across that, keeping my raw edges together. And then I'm going to take a second square. It's going to be my second, start of my second block. And that's all I do. Just lay it. I'm going to leave about 5mm. Link's playing. 5mm gap between each square. And then if I was doing all of my blocks, then I would just continue laying my squares down until I've got all my blocks covered. So I'm just going to do those two for now. Just going to trim that off, leaving a little bit of extra. Press them both together. That's my first strip. Now it's to be trimmed. So I tend to use my square for this bit because it's nice to make sure that your block is square as you go along. So what I'm doing is I'm lining up my line on my ruler with my seam, lining it up along the edge here, lining it up along there.
Emma and Sabine is watching.
Oh,
or
yes.
Sabina, sorry,
Sabine.
Apologize.
So I'm just cutting that edge off, and I'm going to cut this edge off. Then I'm going to turn them around and trim that other edge. So I'm lining up my line along my cut edge, along my seam, along, making sure everything's square. Yeah. Just like that. So that's where my beginning is. So now I'm going to use the same colour, only because both of my strips, my inner round basically of my light colour is the same colour. You can use a different fabric.
Caroline apologizes for being late. Hope she hasn't missed too much.
Hi, Caroline.
And Christina is watching.
No, we're pretty much just getting into it now. Right. Now, this next bit, because when it comes to log cabin, it's really easy to lose track of the order that you need to sew in. So I have a system that I use to make sure that I stay on track. Now, I've sewn my bits together. When I lay them down, I lay them face down, and then I always lay them down with the last strip that I sewed onto it facing up, so that when I go and lay it onto my strip, that last strip is always at the top. I'll show it on the next bit as well. But it keeps you going in the correct order, otherwise it's really easy to sew your strip onto the wrong side of your block. There we go. Don't lay that down again. Just a little gap.
Hillary is watching.
Oh, hi Hillary. Mum can attest this, but this log cabin pattern is one, if I'm teaching somebody who's never machine quilted or machine pieced, machine done patchwork at all before. I'm actually cutting that in between just to make it easier to press.
Sue is watching.
Oh, hi Sue. This is one of the easiest beginner friendly blocks I find that there is, because there's absolutely no corner matching, there's no pinning, and it does make you practice the cutting and measuring quite a lot. Right, so those are my 2 bits. I'm just going to do exactly the same. I'm just going to trim them up, making sure everything's square. Just like that. Now what I mean by my last strip, so this is the last strip that I sewed. You'll see as you grow from now on, the last strip that you sewed will just be one whole solid strip. There won't be any seams in it. Whereas you see this side, there's a seam in the middle. This side, there's a seam in the middle. This side, there's a seam in the middle. And that's my only side that doesn't have any seam. So that's how you can tell that's a strip that you just sewed on. So I lay those down like that, so I know that's my last strip. So now I need my first dark colour, which is this one.
Diana says her beautiful tulips are dying. I can sympathize with that.
Yes, I think I deadheaded the last of them today. Yeah, well, that's all we have to enjoy them while they're here. Right, so I'm just lining it up, leaving a gap because I'm going to want to trim that off to make it square.
Caroline has a question.
Oh,
Is it best to sew on and cut off after rather than cut the piece to length then see? I think that's supposed to be sew.
Yeah. So that's another way of you can do log cabin, is obviously you cut all your strips to the correct length and then you sew them all together. I find that way, faffier. A lot of cutting. I don't mind trimming them off in between, to be honest with you. So it all depends, it's personal preference completely as to which way you like best. I just like this method better. Although you can do the other way as well.
Amanda and Dawn are watching.
Amanda. Hi Dawn. The thing that I do like about this method is that all the blocks grow at the same time, so that all your blocks are finished at the same time. This is a good one. So you could do, if you don't want to just sit and sew like the whole day, this is a good one where maybe you can do either one strip a day, so add to your blocks a little bit every day, or do one round, or just do one colour. Okay, those are my 2 bits. That's my last strip. So I'm going to lay them down like that. So again, you can see there's no seams along this edge, but there's a seam, there's a seam, there's 2 seams. So going forward, the side that I'm going to need to attach my strips to, another way of keeping track, is always going to have 2 seams on it. So that's that way.
Susan is watching.
Oh, hi Susan. Go. Extra off. Now when I'm pressing, I find that pressing the strips outwards seems to work better. So that all of my seams start facing outwards, basically. That one. Just filling the piece. There we go. So that's how you do that bit. That goes in there. And then basically you just grow it from there exactly the same way. So then you'd add this colour, these strips on, just grow it out until you get to that size. So that's that. What time is it? I want to make sure I've got enough time for the next bit.
Caroline asks, are the 2-inch strips, are they 2-inch strips, please?
Oh yes, so I've gone with 2-inch strips. You can do wider or narrower depending on what you want to do basically. So you can just use a jelly roll, but those would be 2.5, so then your bits would be, your blocks would be much bigger. Or you could just do 3 strips, so leave it just like that without adding the extra around the outside, or do 2 and then do the extra around the outside if you don't want to be massive. Or you can also do narrower and you can add more colours if you want to as well, or just make the block smaller.
Diamond says, this is a bit different. I've never seen it done this way before.
Oh, okay.
Following very closely.
Well, this is my, you know, less faff, more enjoyment type of quilting, and this is a way that I've always done log cabin, and I've done a few over the years, and this is the way that I like to do it the best, because I'm not a big fan of doing a lot of cutting up front.
Linda with a Y is watching.
Oh, hi Linda. So once you've got all your blocks to this size, so 3 colours on either side, you then need to decide how you want to lay them out, because with log cabin there's a lot of different ways that you can put them. So you can have them so they form sort of diamonds like that, or you can do that in the middle and then do barn raising, which is one of my favourites, which is where you then lay them out, and if I had more you'd see you'd have concentric sort of echoing lines coming out of light and dark. You can reverse it the other way, so you can have light in the middle and then dark this way.
Carol agrees. That's my sort of quilting. The less faff, the better.
Yes. Yes, definitely.
And Sabina says, love the way you explain everything. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. So once you've got all your blocks done that you want to get done, just have a play, just laying out all your blocks how you want them, because I've done log cabin quilts, especially scrappy ones, where I thought, oh, I'm going to definitely do this arrangement. And then when I laid all my blocks out, I decided actually they really look better a different way. Another way you can do them is as a star, so as a sawtooth star type of thing. So I'd do more sawtooth stars. So you have a star shape and then do an echo around that. But yeah, but also if you go on Pinterest and you look at log cabin layouts, there's a lot of different ideas as well. You can also do them, like I had them before, but all the blocks are going exactly the same way. So it's completely up to you. This is one of those that you can have it however you want.
Anne is watching.
Oh, hi Anne. So once you've decided which layout you prefer, then we need to go back and do what's essentially our last two colours to make sashing in between.
Barbara says she's done her best sewing with you. Thank you.
Thanks, Barbara. So these ones I've got one colour of each, as you can see. So this would be a layout similar to that. Yes, that way. So that's the one I did earlier. Let me lift those up because I'll show you if you want to do a formation like that, you're going to want to do strips which have your dark colours. So two of your dark together. So you're basically, whichever formation you've decided, you need to either use a dark against the dark and a light against the light, so that it all matches. So I know I have more of those somewhere. Oh yeah, here we go. So I need some more of those. I should have some more, maybe some more strips. Yeah, I don't think I've got any of the dark ones. So I need two more like that. I can show you from the scratch how we put those together. So these are my light ones. I know I'm going to need two light ones together, so I'll just do these. Now these I have cut. Now to find out the dimensions of these, it's better to measure your finished block. So my finished blocks came to about 10 3/4 square. The reason, that's actually also the reason that I use the strip method, because I find with log cabin, if you pre-cut, I often find that I either have too much strip or not enough strip when it comes to the end, so they don't always quite match up, because you've got so many seams going on in your log cabin block. If you don't have exactly your scant 1/4 inch seam allowance going on, your block can really shrink up. So that's one of the reasons I really like the strip method, is because there's a lot more fudge factor involved basically, and you'll know that you'll have plenty of fabric when it comes to the end of that strip.
Diamond asks, did those last ones have snowballed corners?
Yes, they did. That's what I'm going to do right now. So the length of my strip, what I would do is, once you've got your blocks to that size, actually physically measure how big your blocks are, because they may not be exactly as to what they should be on paper, if that makes sense.
And loves the quilt on the wall.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, that was a foundation paper pieced one, so it's a rarity for me. I'm just sewing it together exactly the same. for these strips, I find it's easier, instead of pressing your seam allowance to one side, to press these ones open, which I don't usually advocate, but in this instance it does work better and it keeps them nice and straight. There we go.
NS, do you have the pattern for the FPP?
Oh, it's from a book. It's Judy something. Judy
Dench.
No, or maybe Judy Mattison, I think. I'm not sure. I'm not sure it's still in print. It's an old book, but it's all about Mariner's Compass. And it also shows you how to draft your own Mariner's Compass. That was actually a pattern in the book that I printed off and used FPP. But it does show you how to actually draft your own, which I've done, which has been really fun. Actually, yeah, that one was FPP too, but I drew it, so it was easier. Yeah, it's a good book. It's a really good book. Right. So those would go if I was having them like that, or even if I was having them in the barn raising.
Sarah is watching.
Oh, hi Sarah. I would want my two pale ones together to link up my two pale blocks. And like Shirley said, in order to get that star effect in the middle.
Jackie says, not only great tips, but a whole new vocabulary.
Oh.
Faffy, fudge factor. Love it.
Yeah. Yeah, I try. You get to speak Emma. So in order to make that star effect in the middle, like Shirley said, you add, well, what's the effect? Adding the snowball, which basically what that kind of relates to is when you add your corners. Where do I have them? I have them here somewhere. Aha, here they are. So I have 2-inch squares, which I have drawn a line down the middle, and those are added on just like we do the flying geese units, where you sew straight down the middle on the line and then cut off the seam allowance and then press it open, basically. So what the snowball reference is, any square, larger square or rectangle that you have that you want to sort of round off the edges or sort of make a diagonal in the corners, you would add one of these. Now if you had a very big square, so if you had it on here for instance, and a little bit bigger than this one, you'd see that if you added that, then it would make it a little bit more rounded, like a snowball. So that's what we mean. But these are going to be, oh, there's Monty on here. So I'm going to add that one onto there, add that one onto there. One on each corner basically, but what I do, yeah, there's Monty. One day I'm going to have a quilt that doesn't have cat hair all over it, but today is not that day. Oh, I'm going to change my foot. So I'm just changing to my, what I call my flat foot. When it's not my 1/4 inch, when it's my regular one. And I'm just going to sew that onto here.
Edna is watching.
Oh, hi Edna. So that, again, normally I would chain stitch all of these. So what I would do is lay everything out, sew all my strips together that I need to get sewn together, and then do all my corners basically. You have to do them opposite. You can't do those two at the same time.
Dorothy is watching.
Oh, hi Dorothy. So I'm just going to cut. You can use your rotary cutter, but I find it's easier with scissors. Cut my seam allowance off, eyeball it about 1/4 inch, I'm going to press. Now I need to add 2 more. Now when I sew these on, you'd be tempted to want to sew them this way, but I find it's easier to actually turn them around and do them the same way you did. So start from this end, because this end's got so much bulk on it, it can get snagged up underneath. There's one. The other side. It out. Now you see when this is sewn together, your triangles should overlap on either side, so that will be your 1/4 of an inch. So you don't want that point to be all the way at the end here, you want it to be 1/4 of an inch from the end, because then that will be your seam allowance, and then that will make a nice point right there once your seam allowance is taken up. So you'd sew all of your strips together that need to be sewn together, and then, like I said, to put them together it's just like sashing and posts. So I would have if we pretended we wanted to have that this way, I would have a strip which was just these with sewn with my squares. I have my pins handy. So I'd have a strip that was just all these strips with squares in between, and then I would have also a strip of blocks which had been sewn together with these in between each one.
Diamond says, brilliant tip there, because I am struggling with the bulk on the flying geese on the temperature quilt.
Yes, I always try to sew from the corner where it's just 2 pieces of fabric basically, and then also always hold your threads or use a mule to keep those threads tight, so it prevents it from snagging through. If you're really having trouble with the flying geese getting caught up and snagged, try changing your needle. Or if it's really extreme and you always have trouble with your machine, sometimes the needle plate, if you change your needle plate, because mine is a regular one, it has a wide oval, but you can get special needle plates that just have a hole, just a hole big enough for the needle to go through, and that also prevents that fabric from getting caught up underneath and snagged. So, but that's, you shouldn't mostly need that, but if you have a lot of trouble, then it's worth looking into. Yeah, so once you've got all your blocks sewn together with a strip of sashing in a row all along, you've got your row of strips and squares. Those get sewn to those, and then this other strip, I have that. Obviously this isn't the right formation. Let's see, there we go. This strip would be sewn onto that and continuous, and then around the edge you actually need another set of these plus, I don't have it. What I'll have to do is I'll have to write up a pattern, but what you'd want to do is a square So another 3.5 inch square, or however big you want your border, of a different colour. Add your 2 squares of your star so that it continues out into the border as well.
Dawn says, I'm sure this was the first block we made on the sampler quilt at your workshop. It seemed so difficult then, but not now.
Yeah. Yep.
And Debbie says, I use a scrap piece of fabric to sew on first as a lead.
Yes, perfect. Yeah, that's your mule. I always, well, I'm just got into the habit of holding my strings, so I always do that, but that is a good habit to get into, because then it just keeps them nice and tight when you sew your first bit. So that's that. What time is it? I might have time to show one more thing. Looks kind of interesting for a log cabin.
It's not yet dark.
It's not yet dark. Okay, so let's have a play at, since I've got some extra bits here, another way with log cabin, which is quite fun. So let me use this. Oops, yeah, that's right. So have you seen those log cabins which have, well, like flowers, like posies, basically? And if you wondered how that's made.
Thank you, Laurie. It's 2037.
Oh, perfect. Perfect. Thank you, Laurie. Right. So what I'm going to do is take a couple of those here.
Jenny is joining you for the first time. Apologize for the late start.
No problem. Actually, let's see. That's what I want to do, I think. Hopefully you're finding that useful, Jenny. Oh no. Oops.
Oops.
It's a big oops. It's his handprint.
She's not watching, so
You have to fix that for me.
yeah. What happens on Quilting Fridays stay Quilting Fridays.
So I've just got a 2-inch square of my pail. We had 2 of those.
Katrina is watching.
Oh, hi Katrina. If not, I can easily fix it.
Diamond said, hope that wasn't your wine. No, that would be tragic.
That would be tragic. Oops, pencil, ruler. Right.
Joanne said the same thing. That's what she thought too. No, there would be tears and wailing if it was the wine.
Not that bad. Right. So what I'm going to do is, if we keep on the same theme here, I'm going to keep use my pale blue background. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a triangle on here. Well, actually, it goes this way, like that, to each of my dark strips on the end, so that it ends up looking like a posy, like a flower. And then you do that on this end of each of your dark strips, but those you do have to cut to size, which I will do. I can get away with leaving this as a strip, so let me do that. Wrong.
Debbie says she's tipped a whole mug of tea all over the patio table today and one on my bench at work yesterday.
Oh, Yeah, it's usually my trick. But that's gutting when you have a nice cup of tea. And it goes everywhere.
Fiona and Belinda are watching.
Oh, hi Fiona, hi Belinda. Trim that up. Move that out of the way now.
Jenny is watching.
Hi Jenny. Do it, John. Right, that's my starting point. So now, like I said, this next bit I have to actually cut to size. So that is 3, so I'm going to need a strip that is 3.5.
Christine is watching.
Oh, hi Christine. There we go. And then this side is going to be not quite 4.5. But there. Right. Now before I attach those two, I need to add, so that is going to need to go over there. So it goes like that. That needs to go there. So that needs to go like that.
Diamond says, doing a John?
Yeah, chucking all the scraps on the floor.
Aye.
Yeah. Doing a John Scott.
I believe it's Saline is sending a big hug. Looks epic.
Oh.
I apologize if I mispronounced. Ah, it's Sally Ann.
Sally. Oh, Sally Ann.
Of course it is, now that I
See it. Hi, Sally Ann. Right. This is the bit where you have to make sure you cut the right corner off, not the bit that you want to keep. This would actually look cute if these corners were green, so it looks like leaves coming out of the flower.
Bev is watching.
Oh, hi Bev. Right, so using the same, so that's going to need to go this way, like that. Yes, that's right, because that's the right way. So what I'm going to do, you can see it's not quite matching up here, it's a little bit long, but the most important bit that I need to match is this corner. So I'm just going to line up my raw edges on this corner and then trim it off. Trim the extra off. Oh, slipped. Right foot on. Cheat a little, I'm just going to trim that along there for expediency's sake.
Sheila is watching.
Oh, hi Sheila. That's that side, and that needs to go on there.
WS, can you remind me the use of the emery board in the multi mat, please?
Oh, yes, so the emery board, I use it for marking on the fabric. Yeah, so there we go, that's that guy. Yeah, the multi-mat, love it. The emery board, when you're marking, what it does, where's my little ruler? Here it is. It does two things. One, it grips the fabric. So if I was to do this on here, you'll see that it will distort a little bit. So it keeps it grips the fabric for me. And also, because it gives it a rough texture, it helps the lead come off the pencil. So if I try and do that same thing on here, you'll see, and if I grip it with the ruler, can you see how that fabric is distorting? Because there's nothing to grip it. So it still marked it quite good, but you do have to be careful if you don't have, it's a lot quicker and easier to do it on the emery board. So any kind of sandpaper will work. I often have a sheet of sandpaper in my, before I discovered these mats, I always had a sheet of sandpaper in with my sewing tools basically that I could use and do that with. So yeah, love it.
Thanks, that will help enormously.
Good, good, yeah. I also use it a lot when I do my hand piecing, because I don't do the English paper piecing way, I do the American way, and there's a lot of marking on fabric for that, so it's a godsend basically.
Diane says, giving me the incentive to use my log cabin rulers that are still in plastic. Unused. Yeah. I love the dinky rule.
Oh, thanks. Yes, I love, yeah. Have somebody make these for me. And I love it. It's so handy because, like I showed a couple of weeks ago, when you're doing half square triangles with two squares of fabric, yeah, I just line it up straight down the middle. So I've got that center line that gives me my center, and then I just mark on either side, and that gives me my sew line, because I don't like well, you can do either way. So that gives me my sew line on either side. Or if you really want, you can do your center line and just sew 1/4 of an inch from either side, but it's so handy for that. And also measuring your 1/4 of an inch seam allowance. It's got all the markings on there, especially for the attic windows quilt, because it's got a nice, if I show you, you see there, you can really see that 1/4 of an inch in the corner. because you need to mark your 1/4 inch seam allowance on the attic windows for the Y seam, you have to make a little dot, and you don't sew past that. Basically, that little bit in the corner, or you've got this side that has a dotted line, that gives you a nice, that square right there is a perfect 1/4 inch.
Debbie's watching, and Joanne asks, do you have those in your shop?
Yep, yeah, those are in the shop. £2. Oh, and the multi-mats, yes. Multi-mats are there as well. I think we've got some I do have a really pretty, it's not this design, but it's trees. It's really nice trees and birds design. So yeah, so then you would just continue in the same vein. So you would do, well, however you wanted to do it, but a couple more strips of light fabric. And then again, when you came to your dark, you'd need to add your corner bits, basically, to your next bit. Well, that would be out here. For your next colour. There's my next colour. Obviously it would be blue, pale blue rather than yellow. And I have seen some really nice, this way, some really nice designs that have used just a small log cabin like that, so maybe with a couple, just two colours or 2 rows basically, and then you can flip it around and you can actually make it into a wreath type designs, make a circle, which makes it nice. Sweet.
Della is watching.
Oh, hi Della. So yeah, so that's that. If there's any other questions, let Mikey know, because I can't see. I have to scroll up. Can you see it? Yeah. Okay, it's coming.
It's not my first rodeo.
Okay, my love. Okay. So that's that. I can't remember what I said we'd do for next week. Did log cabin this week? Is it borders next week? One of the things.
You did want to mention about next Saturday, though.
Oh, yeah. So next Saturday, not tomorrow, but next Saturday, in the afternoon, I'll be on Hochanda. I have to find out which channel it is, because I don't actually know. But I know you can probably watch it on the website for sure. And I think they do Facebook Live sometimes as well, where they show it. But yeah, so next week on Hochanda, so next week from tomorrow on Hochanda, I'll be showing a little bit of hand piecing, American hand piecing, the foundation by the yard courthouse steps, which was like the New York Beauty we did way back when, but courthouse steps. The attic window will be available, so I'll have a panel for that, plus instructions. Trying to think of oh, question. I don't have it here.
Laurie says it's channel 85, and Diane
thanks,
says it's 673 on Sky.
Bless you. Thank you. Yeah, so channel 85 on Freeview and 673 on Sky.
Carolyn asks, where is your shop, please?
Oh, it's just online at the moment, so everything's online. I don't actually have any premises anymore, but when all this changes, I will be definitely doing classes at Sacrowell Farm once a month on a Saturday. So yeah, that's all been put on hold for now until everything reopens, basically.
And what is your shop web address?
Oh yes, sorry. So the shop is www.swiftquilting.com. So if you Google the Swift Quilting Company, I've got all of my products on there, all the fabric, all the all of the tools, but also the long arm quilting. So I've got all my patterns on there, plus a cost calculator that you can put your dimensions, quilt dimensions in, and it tells you roughly, well, basically tells you how much the cost would be to quilt that. So go on, Nick.
Kathleen says, fab, can't wait to watch.
Oh,
Hochanda is 85 on Freeview.
85 and 367?
375 on Sky.
375 on Sky. So yeah, so that will be a week from tomorrow at 3 PM is when I'll be on that. But yeah.
Sarah says she loves your piercing method.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, this is... I love this way of doing log cabin, because as you saw, even for this one where I measured it out, I had to trim and fuss, and it was a pain. So that's one of the other reasons I don't like to pre-cut my strips, although I do like this. I might have to explore this block a little bit more because I have seen some really pretty designs with it. But yeah, the regular log cabin, just strips, easiest way of doing it.
Barbara says, don't forget quilting with me.
Oh yeah. But that's me and you, Barbara, and Dawn. That's our.
Jenny says, really enjoyed this evening. Thank you. See you next week.
Thanks, Jenny. Yep.
And Joanne also wished us a good evening.
Oh, thank you.
And Laurie says thank you.
Thanks, Laurie. Yep. So we'll see you next week. Will do definitely putting on the staggered borders that I talked about last time, and I'm sure I'll think of something else that I really want to share with you as well. So thank you so much for joining. Have a good evening, and I'll see you next week. Bye.
Thank you.
Thanks, Judy. Done? Technical issues.
Then everybody's saying thank you, so I'm waiting. So Debbie says thank you. Judith says thank you. Sue and Tracy are watching.
Oh, thank you. Hi, Sue. Hi, Tracy.
All right.
I've got another cat. Bye.
Debbie says sorry to join late, but she'll catch up.
Okay. Yeah, it'll be on YouTube as well.
And that says see you soon, Emma.